Welcome to BL Stories, where romance, drama, and unforgettable boys' love come to life. Love knows no limits, and the best stories aren't always straight. Subscribe now and join our growing BL-loving family. Christian's POV. I gently laid Alex back on the mattress. "Take that silly suit off," I teased. He grinned and quickly wriggled out of the plush outfit, tossing it aside. I loosened my tie and set it on the floor, then shrugged out of my shirt and trousers. When I looked back at Alex, still laughing from his antics, I couldn't help but smile. His energy was infectious. "Should I have given you a little show?" I joked as I moved toward him. He shook his head, eyes bright with excitement. Hovering over him, I rested one hand by his side and traced the edge of his jaw with the other. His skin was soft, and I noticed the faint remnants of his face mask still clinging to his hairline. That little detail made him even more endearing. I leaned down, and our lips met in a slow, tender kiss. My heart pounded hard in my chest, every second intensifying the pull I felt toward him. Alex's hands slipped around my sides, tugging me closer as though he didn't want even an inch of space between us. When I pulled away, his slightly dazed look made me chuckle. "Turn over," I whispered. He quickly complied, nestling into a pillow. I pressed gentle kisses along the back of his neck, down his shoulders, and across his back. My hands moved in soft, steady circles, massaging away the tension I found. "This feels really good," Alex mumbled into the pillow, his voice muffled but warm. "Just relax, love," I whispered in his ear. His body shivered at my words, and I couldn't resist smiling. I trailed kisses lower, lingering at the small of his back. My hands continued exploring gently, mapping every line and curve with care. He let out soft sounds of contentment, and I found myself wanting to memorize this moment forever. The closeness, the trust, the way his laughter mixed with sighs. Alex shifted slightly, glancing back at me. His eyes held that familiar mix of playfulness and affection. "Christian," he said softly, "don't stop." I leaned forward and pressed my forehead against his shoulder. "I won't," I promised. We stayed like that for a long while, kissing, whispering, and holding on to each other as if the world outside didn't exist. Every laugh, every gentle touch, every stolen breath only made me fall deeper. When at last we both grew still, Alex tucked himself into my arms, his head on my chest. "I should probably go clean up," he murmured sleepily. "There's time for that in the morning," I whispered, kissing his forehead and then his nose. He smiled, closing his eyes, and I held him tighter, grateful for the peace of simply being together. Alex's POV. I woke up the next morning to an empty bed and a folded note resting on my pillow. "Good morning, baby. I had to leave early, like always, to take care of a few things. You didn't have much in the fridge, or at least nothing I knew how to make, so I ordered breakfast for you at the office. Don't worry about a suit and tie today. And don't work too hard." The message made me smile. Christian's words had a way of softening even the hardest mornings. That smile quickly faded, though, when I glanced at the alarm clock and realized I was extremely late. After the fastest shower of my life and an outfit I'd rather not be judged for, I rushed out the door. The only perk of working on a Saturday was the lack of traffic. I zoomed down the interstate without the usual pileups or unnecessary delays. By the time I arrived, I was certain I had set a personal record. But as soon as I stepped into the building, I was surprised by the number of people inside. I had expected a quiet, empty office where I could catch up on work with a podcast in the background. Instead, I walked into a frenzy, an entire team of people moving like the place was on fire. After clocking in on the third floor, I went down to the first, hoping that the atmosphere there would feel more normal. Thankfully it did. The veteran employees were lounging in their chairs, letting the new hires handle the phone calls. Griffin, one of the longtime reps, spotted me and immediately greeted me. "Wow, you still work here?" he teased. I laughed. "It's been a while, I know." While?" Jillian's voice chimed in. She suddenly popped up from under her desk, nearly giving both of us a heart attack. "Good to see you too, Jillian," I said with a small wave. Most of my stuff got moved upstairs when I took the new position. Not much reason to come down here anymore. Griffin clutched his chest dramatically. And visiting your favorite co-workers isn't reason enough? I had to admit, he had a point. This floor always made work feel less like a burden. The customer service crew had mastered the art of not taking things too seriously, and honestly, it was refreshing. You're right, I said sincerely. I'll make it my mission to visit you all more often. That earned a laugh from both Griffin and Jillian. You'll be back here soon enough, Griffin said. My brow furrowed. Why is that? Because upstairs is full of people who chose to come in on a Saturday, Jillian explained. They live for overtime and projects. Down here, we're only here because it's required. Big difference. In other words, Griffin added, you're about to be eaten alive. I wasn't sure whether they were joking until I reached the 5th floor. The elevator doors hadn't even closed behind me before 2 coworkers I didn't recognize rushed over. Alex, we heard you were coming in today, which makes so much sense because the launch is this Tuesday, and we have files for you to approve before marketing can push them through. I barely caught half of what she said. She rattled off faster than Christian on the freeway. By the time I made it into my office, she had listed statistics, deadlines, and programs I hadn't even heard of. You can get that done today, right? The second coworker asked eagerly. I sighed. Just send me an email. They exchanged a look but nodded, satisfied enough to leave. I had barely set foot inside, and I was already done with today. Christian's POV. Brad and I drove in silence. Every now and then I stole a glance at him. He knew I was watching, but he kept his eyes fixed out the window. I wished I could read his mind, understand what he was feeling, what he was holding back. Brad always went quiet when he was sorting things out. I respected it, but it was also frustrating. Not much longer, I said gently. He gave me a quick nod, but still no words. My thoughts drifted back to the night I'd spent with Alex. The memory instantly brought a smile to my face. The warmth of him, the way he looked at me, the way I wanted nothing more than to wake up beside him this morning. I hated leaving without him, but when Brad called, sounding more shaken than I'd ever heard, I didn't hesitate. Brad rarely asked me for help. When he did, it was never something small. Before leaving, I scribbled a note for Alex and placed it on his pillow. I hated the thought of him waking up alone, but if there was one thing about Alex, it was that he always seemed to understand. I promised myself I'd make it up to him later. I also felt a little guilty about not being able to cook anything from his fridge. He had salmon and biscuit mix, things I wouldn't even know where to start with. My culinary skills stopped at scrambled eggs. So, I ordered him breakfast instead, hoping it would make him smile. A discreet update from one of my aides confirmed he made it to the office, though apparently he was drowning in work. That eased my mind, at least a little. The sound of Brad clearing his throat pulled me back. This is the place, yeah? He asked. I nodded. I'm not sure I want to know how you got this information. Brad chuckled, pulling his briefcase out from under the seat. You're certain you want to do this? I asked him carefully. He hesitated for a moment before meeting my eyes for the first time all day. I'm sure, he said firmly. We both turned our attention to the large building looming in front of us. The sign read in bold letters, Sun County Correctional Facility. Christian's POV. I trailed after Brad as he headed inside. With every step toward the building, one thought kept circling. How spectacularly our parents were going to react when they found out. It wasn't if, it was when. Our mother would be the first to scold us for this terrible idea. And once Slav learned about it, we'd really be in trouble. Brad's shoulders were tight as he walked ahead. I suspected he was imagining the same conversation I was. The front doors felt unusually heavy when I pulled them open. Another sign, maybe, that we should turn around. But Brad kept moving, so I did too. Part of me knew I was here because he needed me, and that was reason enough. The parking lot was packed, which surprised me. I'd pictured it nearly empty at this hour. Then again, I had never been to a correctional facility before. I focused on following Brad's lead. Inside, we were met by a wall of security. Guards moved in and out of 2 main doors, each entrance well staffed. A few glanced our way before returning to their posts. No one recognized me here, an unfamiliar feeling, and not entirely unwelcome. A woman sat at a desk between the guarded doors. When she noticed us, she smiled. "Good morning. How can I help you?" Her nameplate read Stephanie. I opened my mouth, but Brad spoke first. "We're here to visit an inmate. I called earlier this week to schedule an appointment." I turned to him, surprised. When had he arranged all that? "Of course," Stephanie said. "May I see a valid ID from both of you?" We handed over our licenses. Her manicured nails tapped quickly across the keyboard, and in no time, she returned our IDs along with visitor badges. "You'll go through security at the door to your right," she explained. "After that, 2 officers will escort you to the visiting area. You're here to see inmate 61846-026, Vadik Ivanov. Is that correct?" We both nodded. "Great. Those doors are open for you now. Have a good day." Beyond the door was a large screening room with bins on a conveyor and a full-body scanner. "Good morning," a guard said. "Please empty your pockets into the bin and remove your shoes. Then step into the scanner." We did as instructed. The process took seconds. "We'll hold your belongings until the visit is over," the second guard said. "You can put your shoes back on. Follow that door at the end. Officers will escort you from there." "Thank you," Brad replied. 2 more guards were waiting. "Follow us," the larger one said, voice gruff but efficient. We moved through a maze of corridors and doors. I understood now why the escort was necessary. It would be impossible to navigate this place alone. We stopped at another door that opened into a visitation room of tables and chairs. A few inmates sat with visitors, speaking quietly. The guard led us to a table in the back corner. "Please take a seat. Inmate 61846-026 will be in shortly," he said, then turned on his heel and left. I glanced at Brad as we Saturday. "What are you planning to say to him?" Brad kept his eyes on the door across from us, the one Vadik would come through. "I'm not sure," he admitted. "I've run through 100 versions in my head, but none of them feel right. Maybe nothing could feel right in a moment like this." I nodded. "Then don't hold back. This might be the first and last time you get to ask what you need to ask. Don't waste it." He gave me a small smile. "Thanks for being here. For all of it." I huffed a quiet laugh. Let's hope our parents go easy on us. Keeping this from them made me feel hypocritical after lecturing about honesty less than a day ago. But I knew our family. Our mother and Slav would never have approved, and my father's stance on Vadik was immovable. To them, this visit would look like outright defiance. Before Brad could respond, the door opened. A familiar pair of eyes met ours, the same eyes I'd seen at the gala, the same shape as our mother's, startlingly similar to Brad's. That old wave of nausea rolled through me just as it had the first time. Vadik looked older than he had weeks ago. His beard was unkempt, and the shadows beneath his eyes suggested sleep had been scarce. Confusion flickered across his face, then recognition. His expression brightened when he saw Brad, and I had to fight the surge of anger that rose with it. Putting his actions to a face made every emotion stronger. "Brad?" he said carefully as the door closed with a heavy thud behind him. He walked to the table and sat across from us. The sound of his voice made my skin crawl, but I kept my focus on Brad. Silence stretched for a moment. Then Brad found his voice. "Hi, Dad?" he said at last. Christian's POV. My head snapped toward Brad. I hadn't meant any disrespect, but who exactly was he calling Dad? "I'm so happy you came to see me," Vadik said. His voice carried a thick accent, much like my mother's when she felt at ease. Around company, she hid it well, insisting years ago that an American accent helped with business. Back then, I didn't understand. Now, it made more sense. I studied Vadik carefully. He was tall, that must have been where Brad got his height. His expression was calm, too calm, like he had expected us. That unsettling composure made my stomach turn. "Don't be," Brad said firmly in response to Vadik's greeting. His tone sent a chill through me, cutting through the air like ice. Vadik actually flinched at the sharpness. "I'm only here for answers." "That's it." Vadik gave a slow nod. "I understand. What would you like to know?" Why are you here? I blurted out before Brad could continue. Both of them turned to look at me. Vadic's gaze lingered a moment before he spoke. I'm sorry, but I'll only answer Brad's questions. Not yours. Heat burned through my chest. I wanted nothing more than to grab him, but Brad placed a steady hand on my arm. Don't, he whispered. His quiet strength pulled me back from the edge, though I clenched my fists so tightly my nails dug into my palms. Brad straightened, keeping his focus on Vadic. Then why are you here? Vadic's lips curved into a faint smile. Because I wanted to see you. I leaned back in my chair, my blood boiling. Brad, though, stayed remarkably composed, while I felt every vein in my temple pulse with fury. Why now? Brad pressed. Vadic hesitated, as though pausing his own expression. Finally, he answered, Your parents and I had an arrangement. For a time, they helped me with certain matters, and in return, I kept my distance. But now things have changed. My business is thriving. I no longer need that arrangement. This seemed like the right moment to come. Brad leaned back, mirroring my posture. Vadic chuckled. She really raised you alike. Your mother did a remarkable job. I inhaled slowly, trying to release the storm building inside me. Vadic went on, his voice calm, almost casual. I've built substantial wealth for myself. I can provide for you, Brad, the same way your mother has. I want you to work with me. Brad's back straightened immediately. I'd rather die than do that, he said plainly. Vadic's smile faltered briefly, then returned. I believe you'll change your mind. 3 months ago, you were approached by a tech agency, Velodia Colia. They offered you a prestigious position. That request came from me. I wanted you there. I turned sharply to Brad. You were planning on moving overseas? I whispered. Brad shook his head. It was just a trip I was considering, nothing more. Vadic leaned forward. That company is mine. I know you researched it. You were interested. Brad stayed quiet, but I could see the conflict in his eyes. I, however, only saw red. Vadic's confidence, the way he carried himself, made me want to tear him apart. And somewhere deep inside, I knew he wouldn't be locked away forever. This could be the opportunity of a lifetime, Vadic continued. Working with us would put you at the height of your career. Brad finally spoke, voice firm and unwavering. I'm not interested in working with someone like you. Not now, not ever. Vadic didn't flinch. That's how you feel now. But I'll earn your trust. I have time. Brad shook his head. And I'm certain that will never happen. But I do have one more question. Vadic leaned in, giving him his full attention. Why did you hurt our mother? Brad asked. For the first time, Vadic's expression cracked. His smile vanished. That's a difficult question. Whatever you think you know, it's not the truth. I promise to answer your questions, but this one will have to wait for next time. There won't be a next time, I said sharply. His eyes shifted to me, cold and unyielding, meeting my glare with equal contempt. If you want the truth, Brad, you'll need to come again. I won't be here long, so make it soon, Vadic said, rising from his chair. There won't be a next time, Brad repeated firmly. And I'll make sure you rot in here, I added. That twisted smile returned to Vadic's face just as security approached. I'll see you soon, he said to Brad before walking away. We sat in silence, staring at the door he had disappeared through. What did he mean by that? I asked finally. That our assumptions were wrong? Brad shifted uncomfortably, chewing at his nail. I don't know, but I don't like it. He was too confident, like he believes he won't be here for long. My thoughts began to spiral. Our parents had admitted to paying Vadic off, but if they knew he stopped accepting their money, then they must have known what he was building. They must have known far more than they ever told us. It left me wondering, what truths had they shared, and what were just half-truths? I turned to Brad. Is there anything that could get his case thrown out? Brad nodded slightly, though his jaw tightened. There are a few things, he admitted quietly, but none of them are things you're going to like. Alex's POV. Sometimes I stare at my retirement account and wonder how long I could comfortably survive if I quit today. This Monday was one of those days. In case you're curious, the answer came to about a year. After that, well, homelessness. Christian seemed equally distracted when he came into the office. He had that far-off look, as though something heavy was weighing on him. With our messy schedules, we hadn't had time to really catch up. But I did get the occasional email from him that made me smile, messages like, "You're looking amazing today," or, "I know things are chaotic, but please don't quit." Honestly, he was the single reason I hadn't already walked out of this job. Derek popped by my office at one point just to inform me that the third floor was basically on fire. Between the Mavericks merger and the upcoming gear launch, I understood why we were doing this, but I was starting to regret ever suggesting the idea. Then another email from Christian hit my inbox, this time just a picture of a beautiful resort, subject line, "Hawaii in 2 days." This man really knew how to get to me. That was when Joan appeared in my doorway, knocking before striding in. The first thing out of her mouth? Biatch. My eyebrows shot up. She dragged the word out again, even longer, Biatch. I burst out laughing. "What's going on with you?" "Listen," she said, flopping into a chair. "That coworker Jillian in marketing? She really tested me today. She actually switched up the promotional artwork the day before launch. Like, who does that? We don't have time to redesign everything. I swear, Alex, I might lose it." I had to cover my mouth to hide my laughter. "I don't doubt you could take her down, but let's be real, you'd look terrible in an orange jumpsuit." She groaned dramatically and buried her face in her hands. "I think I need to fake a family emergency to get out of here. Now I get why people keep a bottle of something strong in their desk. I've reached that level of workplace desperation." "Or," I suggested gently, "you could take a break. Step outside. Breathe." I had to beg Derek just to cover me so I could come complain to you. "A break is a fantasy. Legally, you're entitled to one," I pointed out. "Legally," she muttered. "But I'd come back to a disaster waiting on my desk. That's the problem." She wasn't wrong. At nearly 3 in the afternoon, I still hadn't taken a proper break. My office door had practically become a revolving one with people rushing in to vent or demand something. Honestly, I was shocked Joan and I hadn't been interrupted yet. "They'd survive if you were gone an hour," I said, though without much conviction. Joan cracked up. "We both know that's not true. Missing one call right now would be the end of the world. It's crunch time. Last quarter, last shot, buzzer beater. You just threw a bunch of sports terms together, didn't you?" I smirked. "Correct. And it worked." She stood with a sigh. "All right, therapy session over. Time to go bang my head against the desk until this overtime shift is done." "If this is therapy," I said, grinning, "I'd go every day." "Try not to get in trouble without me," she quipped, blowing me a kiss before heading out. But the peace didn't last. Within seconds, Bill from accounting stormed in, looking just as frazzled. Jillian pulled another stunt. "I'm done. I'm seriously done." He plopped down in the same chair Joan had just vacated. My eyebrows furrowed. When did my office become the company's therapist couch? By 6, most people were still glued to their desks. Another knock sounded at my door, and I debated ignoring it. "What?" I called, not bothering to look up. "Well, someone's had a rough day." I glanced up and felt relief flood me. It was Christian, leaning casually against the doorframe. "Babe, please save me," I groaned. His lips curved into a grin. "I like that." "Like what?" "The babe part. And the please save me part." I laughed. "That's not what I said." "Sure, sounded like it." He pushed off the frame and strolled to my desk. "This day must be getting to me." I rolled my eyes, though I couldn't hide my smile. Seriously though, I don't know how I ended up becoming everyone's therapist. First Derek, then Joan, then Bill, even Emily and David stopped in to vent. I think I chose the wrong profession. Maybe I should have gone into counseling. Christian clutched his chest dramatically. "Don't even joke. You quitting isn't an option. When things get tough, just come to me, I'll handle whoever's giving you a hard time." Sometimes all I could do was stare at this unreasonable man and grin, mostly because he meant it. Christian, quitting would be my choice, I reminded him gently. Absolutely not, he said immediately. I'd fall into despair. Complete heartbreak. My health would decline instantly. I shook my head, amused. You're unbelievable. As for people barging in here, that's on you, he added. You keep your blinds open, your door wide. If I don't want to be bothered, I make my office look abandoned. Close it all up, lock the door, set your phone to in a meeting. Works like a charm. My eyes widened. Why didn't I think of that? These employees are like piranhas, he said. If you let them, they'll eat you alive. Good to know, I muttered, rubbing my temples. Christian leaned closer, his voice softer. Don't thank me yet. I'm about to make your day worse. I peered up at him, doubtful. How could it possibly get worse? He hesitated for only a second. Bridge came to see me last week. Brad and I visited Vatic on Saturday. My heart dropped. I stood corrected. The day had just gotten worse. Alex's POV. I glanced at Christian nervously as he absent-mindedly twirled one of my desk pens around his fingers. The way he flipped it over, under, then balanced it so smoothly between his thumb and index finger always mesmerized me. It was something I'd tried, and failed, to do countless times. After hours of YouTube tutorials and scattered pens across my office, I'd finally accepted the truth. I just didn't have the coordination for it. Yet, watching Christian do it so effortlessly was oddly captivating. You visited Vatic? I asked quietly. Christian nodded, the pen still dancing through his fingers. Before you ask, yes, it went about as well as expected. Honestly, my blood's still boiling. He spent the whole meeting focused on Brad, wouldn't even let me get a word in. His movements with the pen grew quicker, sharper. It turns out Vatic owns a startup called Velodia Colia, Christian continued. The name struck a chord, and my brows furrowed. Brad was approached by the company a few months back with a job offer. He didn't accept, but he was interested. Vatic made it clear he's been watching Brad closely, like he's been keeping tabs for years. Maybe even since we were kids. I nodded slowly, processing. My memory clicked. I've actually heard of that company. They've been gaining attention for new software developments, security programming, if I remember right. I read about them in a magazine at the Microsoft store a few months back, and I've caught the name mentioned in the news since. That got Christian's attention. His brows rose, though his pen trick never faltered. Seriously? Am I the only one who hasn't heard of them? I shrugged. I only stumbled on them by chance. You're not involved in IT circles, so I wouldn't expect you to know the name. He seemed satisfied with that explanation, his shoulders relaxing a little. Still, I could see how heavily the visit had weighed on him. Do you know anything shady about them? He pressed. Fraud, offshore deals, accounting issues. Christian, I cut in gently, if I knew something like that, the public would already know too. I haven't gone undercover in their systems. All I know is what's been in articles or casual conversation. His lips pressed into a thin line. The disappointment in his eyes wasn't directed at me, but at the situation. Christian struggled when he couldn't see the whole picture. Let's just make sure we don't run our company into the ground in the meantime, I said carefully. The launch tomorrow is critical. Not that your brother's situation isn't. Of course it is, I didn't mean. I know what you meant, babe, Christian interrupted softly. He set the pen down at last, sighing. There's just something about that meeting I can't shake. Vatic was too sure. About everything. About getting out, about Brad working with him, about our mother. He didn't hesitate once. Whatever he believes it fully. His fingers reached for the pen again within minutes, spinning it faster than my eyes could follow. Did he say anything else about your mother? I asked. That was the strangest part, Christian admitted. When Brad asked why he hurt her, Vatic said we didn't know the full story. That things weren't as they seemed. He made it sound like our parents still aren't being completely honest with us. I felt a pang in my chest at the way Christian's gaze dropped to the floor. I wanted to fix it for him, to ease his burden, the way he always tried to do for me. Pushing back from my desk, I walked over. His eyes followed me as I leaned down, intending to give him a hug. Instead, his hand slipped around my waist and pulled me onto his lap. My blinds were still open. My office door was propped wide. And there I was, straddling my boss. I buried my face against his neck before daring to lift my head. His eyes locked onto mine, only inches away. My pulse quickened, his familiar cologne surrounding me. "Have I told you how much I appreciate you?" he asked quietly. "Not nearly as much as you should," I teased, though my voice came out softer than I intended. His hand cupped my cheek, thumb brushing lightly across my skin. One look from him was enough to undo me completely. "Hopefully I can prove it when I whisk you away to Hawaii in a few days," he murmured, voice husky. I blinked. "Still going?" "Yes," he said firmly. "You need a vacation." "I need a vacation." "We need a vacation," someone cut in from the doorway. I startled so hard I nearly toppled backwards, but Christian caught me and steadied me, setting me back onto the desk. We both turned toward the intruder. "Derek." Alex's POV. "Why are you here, Derek?" I asked, doing my best to compose myself after he walked in and caught Christian and me in what could only be described as an unprofessional moment. "I work here," Derek said matter-of-factly, as if that answered everything. I rolled my eyes. "Not like that. I meant, why are you still here? You're never around this late." And I wasn't wrong. Derek was usually one of the first people out the door the second we were cleared to leave. Whenever he was asked to stay late, he always had some elaborate excuse. Last month it was his supposed Aunt Candace, who he claimed needed help recovering from back surgery. The truth? Aunt Candace didn't exist. Joan, and I figured it wasn't worth asking questions. Derek never did much anyway. Keeping him after hours would have been more of an expense than a help. That's why seeing him here after 5 o'clock was shocking. "Have you been downstairs?" "Practically half the building is still working," Derek said, pulling up a chair beside Christian. Christian, however, wasn't paying him much attention. He was visibly irritated, fidgeting in his seat, while Derek rambled on. I knew how little patience Christian had for him. My brows shot up at Derek's words. Was he serious? That many people were still here? I glanced at Christian nervously. Doubt started to creep in. Maybe launching both brands at the same time had been too much. I had seen people work through the weekend, and now here they were, pushing through another late night. Had I put too much on everyone's shoulders? Had I made a mistake? "Not true," Christian said suddenly, standing up and startling me. For a second, I thought he was answering my thoughts out loud. "This launch is happening tomorrow, on schedule. I'll notify HR that everyone will be compensated for overtime." He straightened his suit, still wrinkled from when I had toppled into him earlier, then turned to me. "Alex, your projections look solid. I trust you. Don't second-guess yourself." He offered me one of his wide, confident grins. The kind that always made my stomach flip like I was on a balance beam in the middle of the Olympic finals. I couldn't help but smile shyly back at him. He knew how to read me too well. Before I could say anything, another voice cut in. Well, the whole crew's staying late, huh?" Joan leaned against the doorway. I smiled in greeting. "Hey, Joan. You're still here too?" Her usually neat bun had come undone, strands clipped back haphazardly, and her eyes were red from stress and staring at a screen too long. I'd warned her a dozen times that rubbing at them wasn't good, even bought her blue light glasses, but she was too stubborn to wear them. "Yes, sugar," she sighed. "All the departments are finalizing last details. I even made sure the first-floor venues are decorated for tomorrow's presentation." Derek, meanwhile, promised the team he'd bring them coffee, and that was 20 minutes ago. She shot him a glare, grabbing him by the ear before he could slip away. Christian called after her as she tugged Derek toward the hall. "Let HR know everyone can leave once the essentials are wrapped up. They'll have time for last-minute fixes tomorrow morning." Joan nodded, still dragging Derek, and they disappeared down the hallway. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling tiles overhead. Beige squares divided by silver metal. Funny, I still remembered the day one of those tiles came crashing down on Derek's head in the supply closet while we were getting printer ink. He wasn't badly hurt, but he did look dazed afterward. Turned out maintenance had left a cracked tile in place. Figures. It's been such a long day, I thought. And tomorrow promised to be even longer. You should go home, Christian's voice broke in, low and warm. His footsteps moved closer. You look worn out. I sat forward, eyes meeting his. He was closer than I expected, so close I could reach out. His hands rested on my knees, steady, grounding. There's one more conversation we haven't had, I said before I could stop myself. His expression softened. And what might that be? His thumbs traced small circles over my knees. Bridget, I said quietly. Bridge, as you called her. Christian stilled, his eyes thoughtful. I knew I'd just ruined the mood, but I couldn't hold the question back any longer. Right? He said at last. I ended things with her a while ago. It was already falling apart, so it didn't take much. You probably noticed she just vanished. I nodded. I had noticed, but between my mother's issues and Christian dealing with Brad's father, we hadn't had the time to talk about it, or about us. I hadn't seen her again until a few days ago, he continued. She came to ask about getting back together. I have no interest in that. But knowing her, she'll try something to get her way. I wanted you to hear it from me, because we haven't had time to talk about her, or about us. At that word, us, my lips tugged into a faint smile. Christian hadn't officially asked me to be his boyfriend. It was a thought that lingered in the back of my mind, one I kept pushing aside because the timing never seemed right. Life had been messy. Between my mother and his family, it was never simple. But now, sitting here with him, hearing him acknowledge us, I realized how badly I wanted him to choose me. Thanks for listening to today's BL story. If it made your heart skip a beat, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Only here on BL Stories, where love knows no limits.